Flee. I couldn't bear to keep my eyes open as Carlos fled with me in his arms. I listened to the twigs and leaves crunch beneath his feet. His struggled breaths were becoming impossible to ignore. I don't know how close the beast follows, but there's no way we can outrun him like this. We need to shift, I whimper into his ear. His pace slows and I swing my legs back to the ground and begin quickly undressing. What about your gown? You won't have anything to wear when you shift back, Carlos whispers as I toss it aside. I shake my head. We'll worry about it later, I ignore his gaze as he reads my hidden meaning. If we are even alive to worry about it later. Without speaking, we both shift and abandon our clothes in our sprint. I dart through the trees, looping in and around all obstacles smoothly, but it all to no avail. We hear the heavy-footed monster behind us before long, blood dripping from its jaws after its last kill. Who knows how many bodies are laid out in the street after his massacre? Who knows how terrified this discovery has been to the village people? He revealed himself for the first time in centuries just to catch us. What is so damn important about us? I look to Carlos for one fleeting moment before the jaws of the beast rip in my back thigh, crunching through bone. I squeal in agony, flopping over onto my stomach with dots in my eyes. I know I've stopped screaming, but it still continues to torment my ears. It is so ear-piercing I have to close my eyes and a sob rips from my throat. I've lost. I'm too injured to run, even if he lets me go. My leg is spurting blood now. I can feel it soaking my leg. I want to hold it and comfort myself from the pain, but I can't move. All I can do is weakly change back to my human form, shaking and shivering. The change only makes it hurt worse, but I couldn't stop it. My body just wanted to go back to its original self, I suppose. As the ache throbs over and over again like a panicked heartbeat, I finally bring myself to look up, meeting eye to eye with the magnificent god before me, the beast. The creator of my species, of Carlos' species. Perhaps what he once created is what he is now destroying. Is that what he has decided? Will he kill Carlos too? I whimper as the yellow eyes of the monster come closer, antagonizing me with their promise of death. I could see his intentions. I could read it all, and it will come sooner than later. I lean back, desperately grasping at the dirt and pulling myself backward. He only comes closer, allowing me to weakly attempt at my pathetic escape, as if he were enjoying the idea of humoring me. I feel like the mouse to his cat. Don't fucking touch her. You've done enough. I turn my head to the sound of my husband's voice. Astonishment isn't a strong enough word to express how so surprised I am to see him standing there. Any reasonable person would run ... Well, half of me expected to see him break until the beast's will. It must be impossible to resist compulsion with him so close. But no, he stayed for me in resisting the compulsion. Run, I swallow hard and weakly drag myself away. Carlos, run. No, he sighs. I'm not leaving you alone to die. The words hit hard and I slump in defeat. I know he speaks the truth. He isn't here to save me. We both know how impossible of a feat that would be. He's here so I don't have to close my eyes one last time alone. I let myself sink into the dirt, prepared for the beast to swipe my throat and get it over with. I even close my eyes for the blow. But it doesn't come. The beast growls lowly and diverts his attention away from me. Ever so slowly, his left paw grazes my body as he changes direction and goes straight for Carlos. I open my eyes and let out a short-lived breath of relief. But I clearly see now, Carlos is now the one who is doomed first. I am the weak, injured girl, and Carlos is now the one the beast wants. For defying him, for resisting him, for protecting me. No, 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 I whisper under my breath. I can't let this happen, and yet, I have nothing. Just as I once stood clueless in front of my mother, picking berries instead of her helping her ... I am now laying here just as helpless. The only difference is now I have to watch it happen. My ultimate failure right before my eyes. If he dies because of me, I may as well just lay here and bleed out. What other reason would there be to keep fighting? I should have just laid down and cooperated from the start. Oh, how pathetic am I? Always dreaming of being some knight in shining armor, but when it comes to the fight, I am the weakest one there. The pitiful victim laying in the dirt, watching the horror happen before her. "It's okay, Charlotte. He won't kill me," Carlos murmurs to me as the beast stares him down. I whimper an illegible reply as the beast stands on its hind legs. "You are possibly the most disloyal prince I have had yet," the beast muses with his guttural voice. "But that will change." "No, it won't. I would never be loyal to you," Carlos says weakly. I can hear his voice shaking from the pressure. "Oh, I have to disagree," the beast seems amused. "Come with me," he says menacingly as he rips Carlos from the ground, holding him up with one of his claws high enough to leave him dangling. I struggle to sit up as I watch him hang from the air. I can see the fear in his eyes, but he doesn't protest. "Fine. Let's get out of here," he agrees neutrally. "But what about my wife?" "You will have a new one," the beast chuckles. "That's another guarantee, my prince, if I decide to keep you." Carlos swallows and looks to me apologetically. He's doing all he can, and I never expected this much. I nod to him. He needs to know I thank him for his attempt regardless. He nods back, and we both wait for the beast's reply on my fate. "What of her?" Carlos repeats. "She can bleed out. She's useless to both of us now. She was too weak and stubborn to rule properly anyway." "I will find another," the beast replies proudly. "I will find you a better one," he looks back to me mockingly. "Perhaps even a prettier one." I tremble at his words. They're leaving me to die. I am being replaced. Carlos will be forced to along with it, while I remain here to be picked apart by hungry, scavenging animals. It will be just as it was meant to be. I wasn't meant for great things after all. I wasn't meant to be a queen, nor free werewolf. I wasn't meant to run through the forest in happiness in the mornings. I wasn't meant to come home to a husband I loved and cared for. I wasn't meant to raise his child. Suddenly, a thought hits me, and I sit up higher with a newfound strength. I shake even harder as my teeth grind against each other with hatred. I am no longer trembling in fear. I am shaking with absolute anger. First generation. What if I told you I was pregnant with the heir of the throne? The words came out of my mouth vengefully before I could stop them. The fact wasn't true. As far as I knew, but it might buy me some time. Wouldn't it? The beast growls and turns towards me. The degree of anger in his eyes is unmatchable. If his expression wasn't so terrifying, I wouldn't have been able to divert my attention from Carlos' state of surprised shock. I don't know which of them is more surprised. No such thing is true, the beast mocks me, setting Carlos briefly back on the ground. I struggle to scratch my way to my feet, ignoring the shooting pain in both of my legs. There's no way I'm lying here helpless while he approaches me once again. You have no way of knowing it isn't true. My eyes slide to Carlos, trying to read his innocent brown eyes. But I can't. I see the surprise, but I can't read whether or not he understands what I'm doing. Nor can I tell him telepathically without assuming that the beast will hear. I have a hunch he can't tell I'm lying, which is all the better to make it believable. The beast gutturally laughs. I sense no new life, little fool. I am the Alpha, the creator of all werewolves. I am connected to all of you, and I am telling you that there is no new werewolf. I growl and lean up against a nearby tree as I gain my strength. You don't know that for sure. The life is there. You forget I have connections that are out of the ordinary. Do you mean to threaten me? The beast scoffs. Or are you pulling desperately at a preposterous story that couldn't possibly explain this pitiful pregnancy claim? You realize I still have no issue with disposing of you, baby or not. My stepmother, Marie, I spit out. I was raised by her. You truly believe I didn't learn a few tricks from her, hiding in her bedroom closet, while her and my stepsisters did their work? The beast stays silent, breathing deeply and angrily. What could you possibly be insinuating? You have to be born with a witch's gene to do their work. Besides, from what I heard, you were quite surprised to hear that your stepmother even was a witch when you first found out. She tied you to your bed, if I recall correctly. He smiles smugly. I'm quite the actress. Besides, I am more useful to you than you know. You are the creator of werewolves, not the creator of witches. I half smile weakly. And my stepmother was not the only witch that I knew, was she? Not that you would know for sure. The beast shakes his head and grabs Carlos back into his claws. You stall me any longer, princess, and I'll find a new prince too. I can be patient, but not too patient, he smiles threateningly. You'd be a fool to do that too. I stand on my own now, leaning away from the tree. There are no other princes. In fact, Carlos and I are the only ones left to reproduce." "Not true," the beast rolls his eyes and shows his teeth. "You're pushing my patience a little bit too far, little fool. Carlos' parents are far from their expiry." "That would be true if they weren't dead," I reply quickly and sharply. "I told you, I am gifted." Carlos steps away, wide-eyed and open-mouthed. I wish I could reassure him, but all I can do is hope he trusts that I would never hurt them. The beast roars with laughter. "That's impossible," he continues to laugh, barely able to stay upright at the hilarity of my claim. "Oh, really? I would check if I were you, because I can guarantee that I'll be the only one that can bring them back," I challenge him. Tenderly, I lean down and touch the wound on my leg, concealing it underneath my hand. "Want to see proof of my gifts? Just take a look at this." Slowly but surely, I pull my hand away from my deep tissue wound. The beast looks, hiding his curiosity well, but I can tell it's there. Finally, he can get a good look at my leg, and so can Carlos, who is also watching anxiously for the reveal. He would have had no idea. He's on the edge just as much as the beast. "There's your proof." The beast cocks his head and looks from my leg to my face. "Are you joking? If anything, the damn thing is bleeding even more." "Look down." He does, growling with fury at the matching wound now appearing on his leg. "What is the meaning of this? It's impossible for you to have powers, you puny little." "Is it?" I shake my head. "I thought you were smarter than that." I smile once more. "Now, let us go. We're the last of your children in this entire kingdom, and you did that all on your own. Sure, I planted a trap for you, but you did the rest. Genevieve knew the risk of helping us flee, but she and I spoke and came to an agreement and finished the ritual before our escape. Her life was linked to her parents. The moment her heart stopped beating, so did theirs ... until I undo it. Until then, they have limited time before they've been dead for too long. The beast stares at me darkly. Only first-generation witches are that powerful. Such a thing is too rare to even speak of." I smile and nod. "Well, we're speaking of it now. And I can also conceal a child from you, Alpha. Leave us be, and you won't lose everything you've worked to build for centuries." Carlos stares at me wide-eyed, and I can only nod to him. "Now, if I were you, I wouldn't waste too much time getting back to the palace to check on the king and queen," I add quietly. "They don't have much time before I lose my patience." I expect him to pick both of us up, whip us over his shoulders and force us with him ... but he doesn't. He simply sneers down at me before making the choice to leave. Without run. Charlotte Carlos is at my side in a second, supporting my stance with his strong arms. What? What was the truth? None of it, I interrupt him, finally breaking under the pain. He helps me slowly come back to the ground to lay down. "Let me wrap up that wound." Carlos jumps to the next task at hand quite fluently. I'm oddly impressed by his quick thinking and ability to bounce back. "With what?" "There isn't time to waste. We have to get out of here before he gets back. He likely has already realized I just spit a bunch of lies at him." I cover up my wound with my hand, as blood continued to gush from it. He'll be furious that I was able to trick him. I nearly let out a short laugh. I am a dead woman. "I'll run back and get your clothes. We can bandage it up with mine." Carlos touches my shoulder gently in reassurance and makes sure I'm stable before running off. After he's gone, I stare in the distance. The beast ran off, searching for him, pushing through the trees, but he isn't in sight any longer. He could be on his way back any second. If that wasn't clear, he wouldn't have left us behind. Here Carlos is already back at my side, his torn shirt in his hands. He ties it expertly around my legs and then throws my torn-to-tatters gown over my head. He helps me sit up enough to bring it down over my shoulders while I wince from the pressure. "Oh God, he'll be back any moment," I whisper regretfully. "You could have just let him take me," Carlos murmurs sadly. "I appreciate your effort, but if you're not truly gifted, what could the plan have been?" I suppose it was just an idiotic way of creating a distraction. I managed to spot the wound on his leg. He didn't seem to have even noticed it, the monster. Who knows if the bastard feels pain at all? I took advantage of the situation on the spot. I mutter as he helps me to stand on my feet. Carlos shakes his head. "You have quite the mind, Charlotte." I shrug slightly but stay quiet. "Though I wish at least some of what you said was true," he adds gently. Yeah, it would be awfully helpful to have some of those witch powers now, I giggle. Now, we should get going ... or at least try. That's not what I meant, he trails off shyly. Oh, I murmur self-consciously. I feel another blush coming the pregnancy. He and I exchange glances for another awkward moment before I give him a quick peck on the lips. He deserves it after all this shit, after all. Come on. Let's get out of here. Carlos nods solemnly, giving one parting glance behind him. The only home he's known, and the only home I've known ... now in the hands of the beast, and we are helpless to it. We have to kill him, he whispers. I can hear the inner torment in his voice, and it causes my heart to ache. I feel for him, and I feel like I've personally failed him in this endeavor. I may have brought the lies to light, unmasked the beast for what he is ... but it's cost us practically everything. I grab his hand and squeeze. Run with me. And so we do. For miles and miles, our wolves have never been faster. I don't know where the energy to keep going came from, but it kept pulling us through. Sometimes I encouraged him to keep going, and other times he would yip back at me to make sure I kept going. We run until we don't recognize where we are anymore. And only then did we stop. We have to be on the outside of town now, I say hoarsely as I fall to the ground. He joins me in the grass and stares at the open meadow in front of us. Nice to see a meadow outside of the place, I say, picturing the beast ... in a meadow. It felt like a distant memory. Do you ever remember seeing the beast in a meadow, he mumbles to himself to my surprise. Yes, I say quietly, gazing expectantly at the horizon in front of us. I can't help but curiously stare at the tree line. But I can barely remember. It feels so distant, Carlos groans. I know it happened. Do you feel anyone watching us? I whisper intensely, covering his mouth with my hand without allowing him a chance to answer. I can. There's someone up ahead. I don't sense anything, he says, muffled behind my palm. I shake my head and stand to my feet and attempt to tug him up with me. We have to keep moving. Now. Calm yourself. Jesus, Charlotte, he shuffles to his feet and looks up to the sight before us. I thought being in the meadow with the beast was terrible. Now this situation just might take the cake. Raising my finger, I point to the tiny figures in the distance. They emerge out of the tree line in a row and come towards us, ever so happily. What sick joke is the universe playing on me now? You know them. How could I forget? I shake my head as the small little vermin approach. Because why wouldn't the universe gift me with the opportunity to see my precious stepmother and stepsisters again? Kill the bastard. Just lovely, the wolf inside me growls. My stepmother, Marie, is standing in front of me, her daughter minions beside her. Master said you might show up here. You really think he'd let you escape so easily? I bite my tongue and hold back my slapping hand. You really think that crazy witch claim would fool him? She cackles. It did. For a while, from what I remember, I retort. Lori laughs obnoxiously. How dare you? We take you in as our own sister and you try to send us away. She's clearly offended deep down, but she only comes off as whiny. Don't try to appeal to her sympathy, her mother shushes her. She doesn't have any, nor do we need her sympathy. She stares into my eyes as she utters her next promise. Today, her life will end anyway. Don't sympathize with her either, daughters. My eyes narrow and I ready myself for attack. If there were any time to use my wolf, it would be now. I can see Carlos tense up beside me as well, reading my body language and intentions. Don't bother. You can't beat us. I created you. I can take you out and relinquish your powers just as easily. Is that what you want? My stepmother smirks with amusement. Your werewolf prince could watch you die as a pitiful, helpless human if you'd like. Or you can surrender now and the beast will decide what to do with you. I pretend to hesitate at her words, pondering carefully on my next move ... when in reality the decision is already made. Carlos has relaxed and is watching my face for any clues, but I will provide none. It's time to become the night. What do I have to lose? All that held me back before was idiotic fear, but now I have nothing to fear but the terrible fate I have now accepted. My death. But I will go down fighting. Think about that for a moment, but not for too long. We want to get back into town before nightfall. My stepmother taps her foot and frowns mockingly as if pretending to feel sorry for me. It's over. Charlotte. I shake my head. No, it isn't. You're mistaken. I scream in fury, my claws unleashing themselves from my still human knuckles. My stepmother's eyes widen, and her entire body bends backwards in a desperate attempt to avoid my attack. I only move faster, viciously tackling her to the ground. Part of me wants to rip into her right now. I almost do. But Carlos grabs me by the shoulders and throws both of us back onto the ground. My back crashes into his chest when we hit the cushioned meadow floor. I squirm angrily, but he holds me in place stubbornly. Keep calm, he growls into my ear. We won't get out of this by reacting this way. I elbow him in his throat accidentally, causing him to release me back into my furious attack. And the world goes black. Stop it. Stop. My hands hold the woman down by her throat, my fangs bared. My brain screams to kill her, but my instincts force me to do otherwise. We're outside the border. I cover her mouth and speak to her directly. We're outside his territory. You no longer answer to him. I pull my hands away from her face, revealing her shocked expression. You're in my territory now. You answer to me. I command her. You are my witch now, dearest Marie. I smile slowly, a spark of hope igniting within me at the revelation. She sits up and rests on her hands but doesn't protest. I'm your alpha now. Deadly silence fills the entire meadow as if the breath left every single organism in the proximity. My ears nearly popped from the sudden change in the air. My stepmother was still, as well as Lori and Harriet and Carlos. I step back and take a few breaths. Surprisingly, I don't doubt the words that just came from my mouth. I don't understand them or how I can possibly come to such a conclusion, but I trust them. I know I spoke the truth. We aren't in his land anymore. We are over the borderline of his territory, and he is no longer the most powerful wolf here. I am. I wait for any of them to protest, completely expecting my stepmother to roar with hatred and denial of my power ... and yet, she doesn't. Carlos is the only one that questions it. How is that possible? There is only one. His power only extends so far. He can't be the only one. I snap back at him rather harshly, but I had to shut him down quick. I can't believe this never occurred to me before. He just wants us to think he's the only one. Even if he is the one and only creator of our kind ... AE won't be the last leader, I assure Carlos spitefully. No one can last forever, not if I have anything to do with it. It makes sense. Harriet smugly smirks, finally acknowledging her own understanding of the situation. Why should we stay loyal to that big bully, mother, she whines, returning to her usual, irritating nature. I don't want to serve him my entire life like you had to. My stepmother grimaces and rolls her eyes before standing to her feet. You are the strongest, Charlotte. I can confirm that. This one, she looks to Carlos ... is still weakly connected to his master. There's no way he will be able to overcome his control completely without another master. Carlos pipes up. What? So am I only destined to serve another wolf? He scowls. Yes, my stepmother harshly confirms, sending him only a brief side glance. Wolves aren't all meant to be equal. They're designed to work in packs with high and lower ranks of power. She turns to me with a small smile on her face. I knew there was a reason I had high hopes for you. Don't bother with flattery. I will still despise you for all that you've done until the day I die. But that doesn't mean I will mistreat you if you serve me well. I deliver my promise without emotion and raise my eyebrows as I wait for her response. I would agree to that. She also responds emotionlessly. Good. We have a better chance of escaping his radar with the help of witches. I turn to my stunned husband. What do you say we get out of here and finally take control of our rightful kingdom? He opens his mouth to answer but is promptly cut off. No, it isn't enough. My stepmother intervenes. What isn't? Is my deal not good enough for you? I gasp defensively. I can feel the anger boiling already. It isn't that. It just isn't enough that we let this continue any longer. It isn't natural. Wolves should be created naturally. What he does is play God with the help of slaving witches, she growls angrily. Wolves have the ability to continue on their own without their psycho-creator. My eyes light up at the thought. We could all have our own territories ... with all of our own alphas. Exactly. And you could rule this territory and the entire kingdom. They could have peace for the first time. She smiles at me proudly, I assume full of herself for raising me. Good. So let's dethrone this bastard. Separation. I never imagined that I would band together with my stepmother and my ditzy stepsisters. Then again, I never imagined any of this treacherous adventure. Now, all of us stand in the meadow, our backs turned towards freedom. We could run. But we're choosing not to. Do you think he'll sense us coming and come to us? Carlos asks worriedly. I'm sure he can't wait to see us, I conclude after a moment's thought. I would have to agree. My stepmother nods solemnly. But that is not all I fear about this entire situation, she warns lowly. I have one more concern we should deal with before we storm the kingdom. What would that be? I say curiously as we approach the border. Carlos. He is still under the beast's influence, whether or not he wants to admit it. The link hasn't been severed. She sends me a side glance. I wouldn't even bring him along if I were you, Alpha. We'll only be providing the beast with a convenient weapon against you, your own husband. I tilt my head down, silently agreeing. Carlos physically shows his disappointment but doesn't fight the decision. I will stay behind on this side of the border. He eyes me sternly. I will worry for you, though. I gently take one of his hands between both of mine. I know. I also know I will return, I promise him. He nods, grimly accepting that I must leave now. I feel like I am useless in all of this. I wish I could slaughter him myself, he says spitefully with gritted teeth. For my sister ... for my kingdom. I'm the most useless prince there has ever been. It's not your fault, I gently assure him. You were born into this. You couldn't have stopped his control over you. I lean closer comfortingly. Besides, there have been dozens upon dozens of princes before you that did nothing. You'll go down in history as the prince of the rebellion, Carlos. But he thinks differently. I know it, and I can't do anything about it. Sure, he's the prince of the rebellion, but he's sending his wife into the battlefield instead of himself. We'll have plenty of time for our reconciliation after this is all over ... if we make it through it all. Yet I don't fear it. I nearly welcome it. I don't want to go down as a coward. I don't want to be known as someone who had the chance to make a change but ran instead. I will be the knight in shining armor. At least once. I nearly smile to myself as my stepfamily crosses the border. I turn to Carlos at the last second and hold his hand, squeezing it tightly as a silent goodbye. I want to kiss him goodbye, but somehow that feels too final. I'll be back to kiss you when we've won. I promise, I tell him quietly. I can see the wetness in his eyes, but I shake my head. Don't be afraid. This isn't the end. This isn't goodbye, I assure him once more before slowly letting go of his hand. Good luck, Alpha, he says grimly, holding back the crazy emotions I am sure he feels. The butterflies in my stomach feel like they're ripping painfully through my body, but I have to ignore them. I feel like he hates me for leaving him behind. I feel like he hates me for stirring up so much madness that it led to his sister's demise. All of these facts are true ... and I wouldn't blame him if he did. Perhaps he'll run the second I leave. Our relationship hasn't led to much, after all. It's all felt like a simulation in some way. I have no idea what he truly feels. All I know for sure is that he believed me when it came to saving the kingdom. What does love have to do with that? My stepmother snaps her fingers in front of my face impatiently. Get yourself together, this lovelorn crap is only wasting our precious time. I shake my head and look to Carlos one last time. Look, I don't know how much you truly care for me, if at all, but I'm going to save this kingdom. For you, I turn before I can register his reaction and run. Run quickly, Alpha, or else we'll beat you there, sweetheart, my stepmother cackles. Her two daughters, Lori and Harriet, cackle just as irritatingly as they split a few branches between them. Witch flight isn't a myth. Harriet winks. I only growl and shift midair. Time to run like the wind. The village is in an uproar. Smoke fills the air as most of the buildings burn. The sight alone makes me sick as I run through weeping families fleeing from their homes. They're even more terrified at the sight of me prowling through the streets. No doubt they believe I'm just as evil as the beast himself who prowled his way through here destructively already. I wouldn't think differently. Especially with cackling witches flying above me, peering down at the flames with near smirks on their faces. I follow the witch's lead to the palace. I can smell the stench of the beast as we approach. As I approach the steps, I grimly take in the sight of the crumbling palace. He's obviously taken his anger out on the structure. Who knows what has happened to the king and queen? My stepmother lands beside me, her daughter's not too far behind. "He's coming," she whispers under her breath, only a tad of fear apparent in her voice. He knows we're here. The beast's heavy steps lumber towards us, a cheerful grin nearly apparent on his horrible, wolf-like face. What a lovely surprise, he chuckles heartily. He turns to my stepmother happily. "Thank you for delivering her," pet. Smothered and torn. Part of me isn't the slightest bit surprised, as if I inadvertently intended to fall into my stepmother's trap. Another small part of doesn't want to believe my ears in fear that I have finally failed. "Thank you for delivering her, pet." Tell me it isn't true. Tell me it isn't true. I turn back into my human form and let myself fall to the ground in defeat, the hard, stone steps before the palace hitting my knees unpleasantly. Don't pretend you're surprised, dear. The winning team is the only option for those that choose to survive. You can't expect everyone to take sides with a weak rebellion led by a pitiful girl. My stepmother peers down at me, a neutral, unemotional expression plastered on her face. Mother Harriet whimpers weakly, almost in disgust. I didn't think that. Shut up, child. If you want to keep your pathetic little life, my stepmother snaps. Harriet grimaces and sticks out a pouty lip. I wasn't sure if I was happy she seemed upset at her mother's betrayal or just indifferent. What could she possibly do to help, after all? "No, I shouldn't be surprised," I mutter quietly, holding back the terror and disappointment in my voice. The beast smirks with pride. "Child, it was adorable to see you try. It was almost admirable. If I knew you could be trusted, I would almost wish to promote you in the royal family." He peers down at me intensely, as if considering it for another moment. "However," he muses, "you cannot be trusted, dear. I think you must know that." I look down to the ground, my lip quivering from pent-up anger. "I'll kill him." I don't utter a response, so he turns to my stepmother. "The prince will be taken care of, I presume." My eyes turn up immediately, my body lurching itself forward in anger. Taken care of, I turn back to my stepmother and leap towards her, turning into my wolf midair. My howl resonates through practically the entire kingdom. Surprisingly, the beast doesn't step in until my teeth have already torn through her forearm. Her pitiful little squeal fills the air as she bats on my head with her weak, little hands. She doesn't even have the concentration to toss me away with whatever witchy powers she supposedly possesses. How did I ever think she would be helpful in this battle? That's enough. The beast laughs to himself as he tugs me off of her, her blood dripping from my growling lips. My stepmother falls to the ground, her little, chubby chin trembling. I stare at her, not holding back any of my wrath. I could have run. The beast knew I would head to the border, and she waited for me there. She didn't even have to work to get me here. I trotted myself right on over. I have never felt so much anger or hate. What a grand knight I am. My stepmother ignores me somehow and points behind me. "Where did they go?" she says in disbelief. "My daughters, where did they go? Why did they leave me?" I transform back into my human form, no longer feeling any sting of the transformation after all this time. "Because you are an unworthy mother, a woman only capable of raising unworthy daughters." The beast rolls his eyes mockingly. "Running fools. To think I thought I had loyal companions to take your place after I've finally disposed of you." He addresses my stepmother with a wink. "I suppose I'll have to find a new witch family to do my bidding." He turns to me as my stepmother's face shows her dread. "It is truly a pity you didn't turn out to be of witch descent, Charlotte. You might have filled the role quite nicely ... once I beat the loyalty into you ... but as you exist now, you're still quite useless. I suppose now I should be rid of both of you," he continues after a pause. I aim to make my last words at least sting one of my enemies. I turn to my stepmother with a sneer. Still relieved in choosing the winning side. At least the losing side would have been loyal to you, flip-flopping bitch. The beast's swiping hand targets her first, his enormous talon-like claws scratching the surface of her neck. The nails swipe her so hard she goes flying beyond my vision. I can't help but wince and close my eyes. She's finally gone, but I'm next. He turns towards me with a smile and approaches me menacingly slow, taunting me with his closeness. Are you ready to die, pet? Perhaps, at this point of your failure in your people, it is nothing but a mercy on my part. You really should be thanking me. He sickly jokes. I can't bring myself to respond verbally. I only have the motivation to transform once more to my wolf, to fight until the end. I will not lie here and wait for the bastard to come to me. Going to run, little one? That isn't exactly the most dignified way to die, he taunts me as I stand to my hind legs, oddly surprising him as I do so. Ah, such a pity, girl. You have so much potential. You're my first offspring that has been able to stand as I do, and yet you still force me to kill you. Stupid, stupid girl. He pulls back angrily in preparation of giving me one lethal, powerful blow. I snap open my teeth and lurch towards him in defense. The beast whimpers before I even reach him, stumbling in his step. His faulty step only allowing my teeth to penetrate his neck, ripping their way into the vulnerability of his throat. He yells angrily and jerks away from me, only to yelp again. I look up curiously as I snap my teeth back into his flesh, his desperate claws attempt to throw me off. I look up and see another wolf biting along with me. Carlos. More energy surges within me as we both take him down together, ripping and tearing at him until he's brought to the ground. Another wolf joins us, and another, all of us tearing at the father of us all. Tearing him apart until his whimpers are barely strong enough to be audibly heard. Until eventually the beast is not heard at all. Smothered and torn at by the sons and daughters he created. Freed. After the beast's breathing has ceased for 5 entire minutes, we all finally gain the courage to stop our attack and simply take in what we have achieved. He's dead. The beast is truly dead to us all, unable to hurt us or control us any longer. I finally back away and take in the fellow wolves surrounding us. The queen's wolf and the king's wolf were even among them. My heart warms at the thought they were released from his control before his death. I look to Carlos, relief spreading through me that we have made it through together. Excitement flushes through my stomach as energy bursts from me in the form of words. Shall we head back home? Carlos lightly yelps and nods his wolfy head in agreement. Did he hear me? It appears we have gained back abilities our prior alpha blocked from us. The king's wolf approaches both of us, communicating to us telepathically as well. Fascinating, I murmur quietly. Let's get this cleaned up, Carlos adds, ignoring my initial question. I have to soberly agree. Our reunion will have to wait. Multiple wolves work together to remove the body, trailing it into the woods behind the palace, where a grave would be thoroughly dug and the body would be buried without a word to be said. When the sun begins to set once more, Carlos, the king, the queen, and the first are all able to return home, grimly aware of the trials we have before us. The people have seen the wolves. They know of the beast. This will come up later, I'm sure, along with several other obstacles in the new life that we all have ahead of us. An entire era has ended, an era that began before any of us were born or our grandparents were born. It was a terrible era that led to the brainwashing of multiple generations and the death of innocents who did not follow the rules before us. It is a somber victory, but a victory nonetheless to finally end that era. The king and queen returned to their rooms to rest, their clothes tattered, but their arms around each other as if finally connecting for the first time in all of these years. Carlos and I walk behind them, him watching his parents reconcile with a small tear in his eye. I can't believe that just happened, he mutters, barely audible as we turn into our room. The cold bed has never felt so comforting. Truly mine now that I have earned it. I'm so sorry, Carlos, I only utter, my face concealed by the blankets. I'm so sorry we couldn't have done a better, more peaceful job of this rebellion. I scoff at myself. I'm so sorry about Genevieve and the innocent people of the kingdom. Shach, he sits beside me and rests his hand on my back. Don't upset yourself with what we could not have predicted, Charlotte. What we did worked. War is a terrible solution, but sometimes necessary. especially in the case of a literal monster prowling our streets. He had to be killed. We weren't going to persuade him to let us free by inviting him to a peaceful dinner. He scoffs himself. I only stay silent. I can't bring myself to lighten the air or speak any more useless apologies. I don't hold any of the casualties against you, Charlotte. I love you for what you've done for my people, he murmurs softly. I move my head slightly up, my soft, hopeful voice acknowledging him. Really? Are you kidding? In the last little while that the beast has been dead, it's been the first time any of them have been free, he says soberly. It's the first time that my mother has been free, that my father has been free. It's the first time that I have ever been free to quite literally do anything. I stay silent and watch the thoughts roam his head for a while before asking, what are you thinking? Putting all the pieces together that I've witnessed my entire life. That beast has altered so many thoughts I never even knew of, he says quietly. Do you remember meeting me? I whisper worriedly. Yes, he says calmly. I did that of my own accord when I saw you there in the garden. The beast hadn't asked me to approach you. He only decided afterwards that you would be a convenient match with your stepmother being his witch. After all, as well as my liking towards you ... plus your lack of remaining blood relatives. There were a lot of factors, he chuckles to himself. What a terrible mess this whole thing turned out to be just because I spoke to you in that garden. Oh, shush, I look up towards him from my laying position on the bed. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. Oh, really? How he throws himself down in a laying position beside me, our hands entwining together as we stare up at the ceiling. Gave me a chance to meet the man of my dreams. Well, werewolf, I guess I should say. I smile and bite my lip. Not to mention eternal life and eternal youth. Oh, what more could a girl ask for? I joke as he scoffs. No, but seriously, I say, turning to face him. It gave my life meaning, to be with you, to save your people, to face death. Damn, I feel like I was barely even living before. Well, I guess you don't truly live unless you've faced death at least once in a giant rebellion with your brainwashed werewolf husband at your side, Carlos says mockingly. I giggle. How did you get at my side anyway? What made you not stay at the meadow? I suspected something, but I trusted your judgment. Well, you shouldn't have. I was an idiot, I interrupt him with a light laugh. No matter, he grins. Harriet and Laurie came and brought me. I sit up in shock. They did. They helped you. Yes, he says simply. Why? They didn't tell you. I haven't even seen them since they abandoned Marie. I narrow my eyes. Why? Where are they? Back at home. I gave them permission to stay back at your original home. I hope that's all right. To get rid of the exile, he says quietly. Of course, I sit up from bed and give him a quick but passionate kiss. We have more reuniting to do, but first, I have some obligations to my dear, whiny stepsisters, I say hurriedly. I understand perfectly. Carlos shakes his head with a smile. See you later. I'm going to pass out. I smile. You rest up, and I'll be back in your arms before you know it. Home. The walk to my childhood home is strangely an exhilarating one, filled with hope and progress. The streets are being cleaned by the king's men as I walk by. Homes are being repaired nearly in the blink of an eye. The village will be whole again. Perhaps the people will forget there ever was a beast that once prowled the streets on this fateful day. Perhaps they will forgive the past and this will become nothing but a myth they tell to their children at night. I sure hope so. This will be nothing but a story in a few generations, and Carlos's family will not suffer the consequences forever. Surely the people will be thankful enough and continue living here now that the kingdom is being repaired so quickly. Sure, none of them will walk the streets confidently for the next few weeks, but they will know that things have changed. We have a new alpha now ... but they don't need to know those details. Once I come up to the front door of the little home I once called mine, I can't help but hesitate. So much has changed. I have changed drastically. My stepsisters have changed drastically ... Even my stepmother is gone from my life, rather permanently. Then, there's the issue of my father. I still haven't a clue when he will ever return. Perhaps my mother told him to never ret. The door abruptly opens, Laurie's emotionless face on the other side. Surprise visit, she mutters curiously. She peers down at my hands next, noticing that I have brought nothing with me. No thank you gift. I roll my eyes. May I come in, Laurie? To speak with you and Harriet. She nods acceptedly. Yes, but I should warn you of something. What's that? She just gestures for me to come in, holding the door open for me. I step in and remove my footwear nervously. I hadn't exactly planned out what I would say to the two of them ... especially after exiling them and causing the death of their mother ... I hadn't even considered that consequence. Don't worry about it, Harriet huffs the moment she comes into the room and sees my face. She was nothing but a vile influence. We're quite literally liberated with her gone. Charlotte Harriet giggles nervously. Come into the dining room. We have something for you. I should be giving you something, I protest, but I am ushered into the room, only to see my father sitting at the head of the table. I freeze in place, several emotions taking over my body at the sight of my father ... He abandoned me when I needed him most because he couldn't stand to see me this way. He lied to me about too many things to count. He married the stepmother that caused this mess ... But, to be fair, he was strongly under her influence. I simply don't know how much I can blame him for his weakness to her. I look to the ground and hold my hands in front of me. Father ... I don't know what to say. Don't say anything, he says worriedly, standing from his chair nervously himself. I have so much to apologize to you for. I should have been stronger for you. I should have stayed and taken care of you. I feel a small sting in my eyes and look away. You were corrupted. I'm not going to personally hold that against you. Yes, maybe so, he says regretfully. But that doesn't mean that you are disappointed in me for letting you down. It's a simple fact. I shouldn't have allowed it to happen. I should have known what your stepmother was from the start. It's what caused all of this. I shake my head sadly. It's all right. It's led me to a life worth living ... I suppose you could say. I wouldn't want to have it any other way. He stands with his shoulders slumped and nods his head. I can't argue with that ... But regardless, I am terribly sorry that I couldn't have stayed to support you along the way. You could have been hurt in the process if you had stayed, I shrugged. Who knows what the beast would have used you for otherwise? Bait. Who knows ... I guess I'm glad you were able to avoid the crossfire and return home to a safe kingdom without a terrible second wife to hold you down. I lightly joke near the end, sending Harriet and Laurie an apologetic glance. No offense, ladies. None taken. We're finally free to be whatever witches we choose to be. Perhaps we can even get into the doctoring field. Harriet giggles to herself. That would be so fun, the sisters giggle together while I tense up at the idea of them holding the lives of others in their hands with their limited knowledge. How about we put you through extensive training, and then you can be of service to the kingdom in all sorts of witchy ... fields. I smile to them both. You have much to learn, and I would be happy to provide you both with a proper teacher. The offer sits in the air for a moment. We'll take it, but not as a handout. We'll take it as a gift for saving your life and Carlos' life. Fair, I nod to them both. Thank you again. They nod and wave me off, the emotion becoming too embarrassing for all of us. Finally, I turn to my father. And Father, if there is anything you need, please let me know and I will get it for you. He smiles and nods. How about a hug before you go? I'm sure your husband is waiting for you. I hide my smile and give him a quick but warm hug. Be safe. All of you. I'll reach out in the morning to let you know when your witchy classes begin. To my surprise, Harriet and Laurie both pull me in for a forceful hug the moment I let go of my father. Thank you, sister. It will be a pleasure to serve you in the future. I don't reply, but it fills me with more hope knowing that they have my back. No more enemies to speak of, and my family is back where they should be. Have a good night. All of you, I say farewell to them as I make my exit, looking back once more just to take in it all, my calming down stepsisters, and the father I thought would never return, all home where they should be. Have a good night. Alpha, my father, smiles at me, his face gushing with pride. Good night, Alpha, my stepsisters smirk, but I know they mean it. Epilogue, wedding day. When spring came the following year, the trees blossomed like never before. The garden on the side of the palace where Carlos and I first met never appeared more magical. The new gardeners were renowned for their abilities after all, and they are so unbelievably loyal to us. Carlos' parents stepped down shortly after the revolution, allowing Carlos to take the throne when he was ready, his queen at his side. Of course, a genuine wedding was in order to show the people who their new queen truly was, despite my nervousness to appear as their queen after everything that happened. Regardless, a wedding is bound to happen, and I couldn't think of a better place than that glorious garden during the prime time of spring. Carlos didn't dare to disagree. The morning of, I adorned myself with the same dress Genevieve allowed me to wear the first time around. It was a small tribute I could pay to her after everything that happened. Her unfair death is something I will remember always, and it will always hang in the air, but I can do this for her at least, and I am thankful for that. "You look beautiful," the previous queen stands behind me, her genuine self showing now more than ever as a proud mother. "I can't believe how lucky my son is," she winks lightly as she begins to help me with my hair. "He's going to lose his wits when you walk down that garden path." I smile to myself as the moment sits in. Today is my wedding day. My real one this time. Once my hair is finished, I spot the supportive kingdom lining up at the gates to watch the marriage take place. I can't help but blush bashfully. We've come so far and they've decided to stay with us. I couldn't be happier to see them lined up like that, just as happy to see me in my gown marry the king. "You'll never grow tired of it," the queen says proudly behind me. "A kingdom's love is nearly as satisfying as being the alpha of a pack," I'm sure she teases. I scoff lightly. "Oh, it's definitely a close call." "The pack is already here for the wedding?" I ask her nervously. "Yes, they're already lined up alongside the aisle, ready for the queen and alpha to bless them with her presence." She grabs my hand. "Come on, let's not keep them waiting." I bite my lip. "Yes, let's not." I barely hear the roar of the crowd as I walk down the garden path. The blossoms of the red flowers spread across the aisle beautifully, but all I could stare at was Carlos ahead of me. "I love you," I mouth the words to him before I even make it to him. He smiles and returns the favor, saying it aloud for only I to hear. "I love you too." I join my hands with his the moment I am up at the altar with him, tears in both of our eyes. I say it eagerly, and so does he, joining us together for quite literally eternity. Who knows how long we will reign as king and queen here, and who knows what children we may pass the throne along to, but we will not have to pretend to age, nor deny what we are. We are finally free, and we may stay as long as we wish here as the king and queen ... Or perhaps we'll just run off and enjoy the world just as Genevieve would have wanted us to. We shall just have to wait and see what the world holds for us. The end.